why the location is very important into where you should look into some programs. So without further ado, great. So when a lot of people think about architecture, they think about houses, skyscrapers, or even kind of apartment buildings. And in a way that's accurate, but SCI-Arc in a way sees architecture as a cultural production. And a good way to kind of see what the cultural production looks like are, very iconic buildings that you can see from all over the world. Here in particular, this building is the Walt Disney Concert Hall, which is created by Frank Gehry, who is also one of the founders at SCI-Arc. Going on with the cultural production, you can see here that architecture comes in many different forms. You'll see here on the left, that's a digital installation by Hernan Diaz Alonso. I believe that installation was for Budapest. And then on the right-hand side, you have an installation from SCI-Arc faculty member Alexis Rochas. Now, the installation on the right-hand side actually was installed at Coachella Music Festival, which is a very large music festival. People from all over the world come from to attend this event. And I believe this cultural production for Alexis Rochas' work was the silent disco at Coachella. So there are different ways that architecture can be seen. It's more of an experience and allowing people to be a part of a space. Now at SCI-Arc, we understand that we want to shape the greatest architects coming into the field, but we also know that it's more than just architecture, right? We want to allow our students to become architects, but to become leaders as well. To know that architecture kind of is worldwide, of course. We want to allow our students to address social, issues like homelessness, right, or affordable housing and whatnot. The list goes on. And we want to allow our students to become architects who are able to address those issues wherever it may be, whether it be in the United States or from a different country or where these students are from. So we really put an emphasis on allowing our students to become great leaders. Now, while SCI-Arc is an independent school, we do offer undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate programs. The school is about 500 students, 250 undergraduate students, and then the other 250 kind of just fill out in our graduate and postgraduate programs. But in 2019 and years before, SCI-Arc has been a top 10 architecture school in the United States, which is what we really take a lot of pride in. And going along this presentation, we'll be able to see, why we are ranked top 10, for the last couple of years. And with us being an architecture school only, we, of course, know that there are many different parts of an architecture education, right? Just to kind of clarify, SCI-Arc only provides an architectural education. We do not have any other majors or tracks for students to pursue at the undergraduate level. So one of the first important components of the architectural education is the studio. So the core of architecture school is the studio. And as you can see here, we do have a very large space that students are able to kind of be a part of rather than individual, rooms and whatnot. And this is one of our bigger spaces for the design studios. Here you're able to see students' workspaces and how they're able to collaborate with other students in a way, just be able to be in what's called the one room schoolhouse. And that's really kind of funny that we say that, because in the beginning when SCI-Arc was founded, that's really what SCI-Arc was. It was a one room schoolhouse in a warehouse. So it's pretty neat. Since architecture is a design discipline, the benchmarks in the progression that students make are a bit different. And this is where we have critiques. So you're able to see in this photo that critiques really happen when the faculty or the design studio faculty member is able to kind of address, what everyone's working on in a sense for the design studio. But this is where faculty members will come into your studio space and see what you're working on, and they're able to give you feedback right then and there, as opposed to sending it to them via email and doing it over the weekend and sending it right back. They're able to give you that feedback right then and there. Now, after the feedback, students have another type of benchmark, which would then be called a pinup. Now, the pinups here are, you're able to see in the slide. This is where students hang up their work on what we call our white wall space areas. And if you are ever able to visit SCI-Arc, you'll see that we have plenty of white wall space from very early on in the building all the way to the very end. This is where students really take advantage of having the amount of space available so that they can display their work. Usually students will present their work to a jury, which consists of other SCI-Arc faculty members during midterms and final times. We'll, for the most part, also invite other architecture faculty members from other schools, and then have visiting architects as well. Now, SCI-Arc does have two kind of different approaches into the architecture education, and the first being the design excellence. So the first 3 years of your studies at SCI-Arc, you'll be enrolled in what's called the core studios. Now, what you're able to see here on the screen is that each column represents 1 year. So 1A, 1B would be your first year, second year, 2A, 2B would be the second year of your program, and so on and so forth. Now, the first 3 years of your core studio, SCI-Arc really allows they kind of encourage students to think, in, let's say, for instance, like conceptually, where they will have to understand what volume and mass is before they're able to kind of go into creating a building. And a lot of the times students going into an architecture program, they think that they're going to be creating these buildings or just structures right off the bat, but there's a lot more to learn before you're able to get to that point, which would then be your third year of the core studio. Now, in here, you'll be able to see students are able to, create different designs, and some look similar to others and some look completely different. But what students learn in these core studios is that there are different representation techniques. And so students have the ability to show their work in different perspectives of their designs. Now, for students to have kind of a comprehensive overview of what the structures would look like, to provide of what they would look like, this is how they would be able to do so without creating the physical model, because physical models can be really large. They can take a lot of space. So students are still able to do so, with renderings without having to create these actual designs. Now, this is a 3D design, through a physical model. So students have very different ways of showcasing their work. And this is just more work from our students in the core studio. So first, second, and third year. I believe this is a third year project. And in the second part of the architectural education, we do have the technical expertise, right? And so this is where, while SCI-Arc is the design-driven school, students are still technically sound. So they are able to take courses in materials and structures and tectonics, and just having an understanding to contemporary building technologies. Here in this slide, I believe it's the applied studies that students are able to learn about natural ventilation that happens in a building. And sometimes people will see, student work from SCI-Arc and say, well, these designs look really beautiful and, really, different, but are these buildings that can be created in real life? And the answer is yes. And because the students will be able to learn all of that, all of what it takes to create their physical models from the renderings throughout the architectural education. Now, you can see here that students are able to kind of put to scale, like they'll typically use trees or people in this example of how big the space will actually be, for people who kind of having a hard time imagining what size this building would be, in real life. Now here, this is just more construction documents, and students are able to learn about construction documents so that they can kind of piece together of their actual physical model and then how it got to that point. And again, this is where students are able to learn that in the applied studies courses that they'll take. Now, when it comes to vertical studios, this happens after your first 3 years at SCI-Arc in the undergraduate program, after you've completed your core studios. Now, the vertical studios range from so many different, opportunities that students can, enroll in. Typically what happens is SCI-Arc will host a lottery for students who are seeking a design studio with a certain faculty member. And this can be at the undergraduate, graduate, or postgraduate level. We allow students from all three programs to potentially be in the same design studio. And that's where students are able to learn from each other, whether it be a graduate student learning from an undergraduate student or an undergraduate student learning from a postgraduate student. They're all coming from different programs, but of course, at this point, they're now coming into a vertical studio where they've learned plenty of things in the core studios from years 1 through 3, but now are able to apply that to their own interests within architecture. So these are just some very similar, or not similar, but different designs that students have created in these vertical studios. I believe this next slide is VR. If it's not that one, it's this one. Yes, so this is a virtual reality. And then we also do have students working with augmented reality as well for their vertical studios and also with their visual studies as well. Now, apart from the design aspect at SCI-Arc, we also understand there's more to the architectural education, which happens to be the form of the liberal arts. Our liberal arts curriculum, going to the idea that architects are public intellectuals, we also do offer, courses that students can take that will help them become the leaders that we want them to be as architects. So in this photo, you're able to see that our class sizes are pretty small. While we do have 500 students at SCI-Arc, our student to faculty ratio is about 13:1. So that allows students to have more face time with their faculty members, more feedback, more input on their work and whatnot. And maybe you might not get that at another program that's bigger and whatnot. So all of our faculty members are practicing architects. So, they're learning just as you are in a program, and they may be able to, bring what they learn in the field professionally into the classroom. And I think that's very important to know as a student. We also do offer a series of master classes. Typically, it's every other Thursday or every other Wednesday on campus, where we'll bring guests from outside of SCI-Arc, and we're able to provide conversations with individuals to our students. Some who are in the field, some who have been in the field, previously and are retired, and who've worked with very well-known architects and so on and so forth. This introduces students to a variety of topics, that may not be offered in our liberal arts education. Now, after completing your first 3 years in the core studio and then going into your vertical studios, your 5th year in the professional 5-year Bachelor of Architecture program is what's called your thesis. The first semester, you'll go ahead and you'll be in what's called thesis prep. So you'll be working with your thesis advisor, which they typically are hands-off for the most part. This is where the students are able to take full control of their projects and kind of bring it to life, and everything that they've learned from the first year all the way to the very last year, they're able to put that into their project that they have control of. And with their advisor, they can seek any feedback or any kind of guidance within their project as well. So these are some of the thesis presentations that have been recently at SCI-Arc. I believe this student here was in 2018. They I believe were awarded one of the awards that are given at the end of the years to students in their thesis presentations. And I think it's a great opportunity for students to have that exposure, since we do, at the time of thesis, finals, and midterms, we do bring in visiting architects from our faculty members from other schools. And you never know who's in the audience watching. And I believe this student here was able to secure a job opportunity with this presentation. So you never really know what architecture can lead you into, but nonetheless, your thesis presentation as well. So these are just more individuals here in the center of the screen. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse here. This is Tom Main. Tom Main is a very well-known architect all over the world. He's actually a faculty member and one of the founders of SCI-Arc, and he still continues to teach at SCI-Arc till this day in our postgraduate program. As I had mentioned, we are located in downtown Los Angeles in the Arts District, a city known for its latest developments in architecture, right? If you have ever been around the the downtown area of Los Angeles, or maybe have seen it in TV, commercials, films, music videos, even documentaries and whatnot. Um, uh, it's even though Los Angeles has been around for years and years and it's been established, it's still developing from year to year. The amount of people that live in Los Angeles, just Los Angeles City and not even county itself, there's a lot of work to be done to provide housing and other kind of spaces for resources and whatnot. So that's something to keep in mind of being located just directly outside of the downtown Los Angeles. This is just another kind of space here. This is about 2 blocks located away from SCI-Arc. This is the largest private gallery in North America, and we typically see people from visiting from outside of the state or the country visiting this, and a lot of the times they stumble across SCI-Arc as well, because we are open to the public, and we allow visitors to come and visit to see potentially what our students are doing and what kind of work we're producing and whatnot. Our faculty members, as I had mentioned, are all practicing architects. Here are some of the works from our program chairs. As you can see on the top left is Elena Manfredini, who is our program chair for the master's program. On the very top right is Tom Wiscombe, who is the chair of the undergraduate program, and then Hernan Diaz Alonso, which was that installation for Budapest on the bottom left. He is the director at SCI-Arc. If you are familiar with the Los Angeles area, just a city located to the west of which is Culver City, Eric Onomas on the very bottom right has been known for revitalizing that city. A lot of buildings kind of look similar, and you're able to kind of see what an architect can do to a city to revitalize it, or to have an emphasis and an impact on the community and whatnot. The facilities that we have at SCI-Arc within the quarter long mile building that we have, it's just very long. We do have administration side to the building. We do have academic side to the building. We have studio space side to the building, and then we also do have the fabrication facilities portion of the building. So here, this is where we have our analog shop, our analog fabrication shop. A lot of times students use woods, metals, and plastics in here. It's a 6,000 square foot analog shop, which is actually pretty large. When SCI-Arc does happen to open up again and you are able to visit, this is definitely a space worth to see, as you'll be spending a lot of time in any kind of fabrication facility in an undergraduate bachelor's program. Students also have access to what we call the Robot House on campus. It's a platform for experimentation and speculation on the future of architecture. Tom Wiscombe, who is the the program chair for the bachelor's program, he loves to talk about this space simply just because students are fully able to kind of explore and what they're wanting to do with some of their courses. I believe visual studies takes a good amount of time in this robot house with their work. But what you see here are 5, 6 axis robot arms. 2 or 3, 4 of them are mounted to the ground, and 1 of them on top of the ceiling. And it gives students a wide range to do certain things within the robot house. And the last part of the fabrication facilities that we have is the Magic Box. The Magic Box expands SCI-Arc's experimental approach to design, and for digital fabrication tools. We do have 3D printers, CNC milling machines, laser cutters, which happen to be one of the more frequently used parts of the fabrication facilities. And every single part of the fabrication facility is equipped with full-time staff. Full-time staff that has experience and previous history with architecture, art, or design, which then sets up students for really great success if they're really pressed for time, or if they're having really hard time understanding a certain part of the fabrication process. And these individuals have over years, if not decades, of experience in the shop. So students who apply to SCI-Arc, this is kind of a recap. It is a very hands-on studio-based program. It is a professional degree, so you will be earning a Bachelor of Architecture in a 5-year program. We talked about the approaches that SCI-Arc has with their architecture education, which features design excellence and technical expertise, also incorporating the liberal arts portion of the education, which then allows our students to become leaders and focus on social issues and whatnot, and so on and so forth. And then again, one of the really more important things about what we've talked about so far is that all of the faculty members at SCI-Arc are practicing architects. So they are working in the field professionally now. Now, a lot of the time, students are interested in studying abroad, or even whether it's for a semester, a year, or even just having travel opportunities. So we do have satellite campuses in Colombia, Shanghai, Mexico City, India. And during the summer, the students have opportunities to actually go on to these trips and visit these satellite campuses. One of the more popular ones happens to be in Tokyo, Japan. And this is where students are enrolled in a design studio for the summer and are able to, and in a way, it's kind of like a visiting student, but it's at a satellite campus that SCI-Arc has in these countries. Now they are able to collaborate with different architecture programs in various universities within the city, and students have the opportunity to go on to exchange to Royal, I believe, RMIT, which is located in Australia. So there are plenty of different options that students are able to go and travel to different parts of the world, just outside of Los Angeles. Now, and these are the ones that I had mentioned. I apologize about that. But if you are interested in SCI-Arc, you may think, small school, what kind of student is SCI-Arc looking at? And the SCI-Arc student is someone who is bold, who has a very strong way of thinking. But not only that, but they're able to, they're not afraid to experiment with any of their work. And I think that's something that's important. Because if you are looking to be a student at SCI-Arc, there are plenty of different people who come from all over the world, right? So being exposed to different cultures and different kind of experiences that people have been through in other countries or other parts of the United States is something that students have a huge takeaway from, because although we are a small school, we are very diverse with our student population. And you are able to see here on the bottom left, students are able to skateboard within campus, within the building. And the reason being is because, as I mentioned, it is a quarter length of a mile. So just if you're at the fabrication shop and you happen to forget one small thing at your studio space, you have to walk a certain amount of time all the way back. So we do allow students to skateboard in and out of the hallways at SCI-Arc. So something that we are looking for in an applicant that is interested in applying to SCI-Arc, you can see that we like someone who is dedicated, who is disciplined. When the program continues to get more intense, that students are going to be able to stay disciplined and continue on with the course, but also someone who's curious. This kind of goes in with the experimentation piece, that where students are able to kind of, if they think they have a love for architecture, they happen to find it even more once they are enrolled into SCI-Arc's VR program and whatnot. But when it comes down to the actual, requirements, not necessarily requirements, but what we're looking for in an applicant, an average of a 3.4 GPA. This doesn't necessarily mean that it is a minimum. As I mentioned, it is an average. So we do see students submitting an application with a little lower than a 3.4, or even, exceptionally way more than a 3.4. Although we do recommend students submitting their SAT or ACT test scores. As you can see here, we're looking for about an average of a 1260 and an average of a 27. The submission of your SAT or ACT test scores for this admission cycle is optional. We understand that some students may have had a test scheduled that got canceled and never rescheduled, and so on and so forth, or they're not offering tests right now. So we understand, and this is why we are allowing students to have the option to submit their SAT or ACT test scores. Now, what sets an applicant apart, right? We want to make sure that they have a a huge interest in aesthetics and design and art, and especially architecture. But we would encourage anyone who's interested in potentially applying to architecture school to take art classes offered through your school, or maybe even if there's a community college that you're located around that has maybe workshops that you're able to kind of generate a portfolio, or even just to kind of experiment with. We definitely want that definitely will set an applicant apart. So we can see that they have an interest in architecture, or even just some sort of design before applying to SCI-Arc. Now, in order to apply to the bachelor's program, you are able to see that there are a number of things that you have to complete. So when you submit the common application, SCI-Arc is on the common app, you'll have to complete the SCI-Arc supplement question, which is pretty simple, but we would like to see a very detailed answer, which would be why architecture, why do you want to study architecture, and why is it that you want to study architecture at SCI-Arc? We also do, of course, as I had mentioned, the SAT and ACT test scores are optional, but we highly recommend those to be submitted if you do have them. Your official high school transcripts should be submitted through either Common App or Naviance. 1 letter of recommendation minimum, and 5 letters of recommendation max. And while the portfolio submission for the BARC application is optional, it is highly recommended. And if you don't have any work to put together for a portfolio, that's no problem at all. You're more than welcome to submit your application without the submission of a portfolio. But if you are going to be submitting a portfolio, it's anywhere from 5 to 25 pages that we require. Okay, and our priority application deadline is going to be January 15th, 2021. We do accept applications after the 15th of January, but if you are looking to be considered for a merit-based scholarship, we would require students to submit before January 15th, 2021. Okay. Now, if you are interested, learning more about architecture and design, we also do have a let me see here. Let's see. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry. We do have a high school summer program where it's called Design Immersion Days, also known as DID. It is a 4-week summer program which starts in mid-June. This last summer was the first time we had ever held it online due to COVID. And it still was actually really great for the students who wanted to be a part of this program. Our program coordinator, Mira Henry, she was able to allow the curriculum from the previous years in person to be essentially the same. So this allows students to be very hands-on. If they are potentially exploring careers in architecture or even any kind of design, students learn 2D and 3D software and are able to create projects with a hands-on approach to it. And at the end of the project, at the end of the summer program, students are able to put all of their work that they've created into a portfolio. And whether you are considering applying to SCI-Arc, you're more than welcome to use that portfolio for your application. Or if you're applying to any other architecture program, you're more than welcome to use that as well. Students from all over Southern California, we've had students from out of state and as well out of the country kind of complete this program. And I think it's a very awesome way for students to kind of see what other students are out there that are interested in architecture. I think here showing a visual of what DID looks like for these students is pretty neat. Walking all over SCI-Arc when DID is hosted on campus, it's pretty interesting to see. I mean, you see designs from all over the place. As you can see here in the very middle picture, students were putting up stuff all over the windows, and sometimes they were just completely filled at one point. And SCI-Arc, the Design Immersion Days program also allows students to take field trips. Here on the left, you can see that this is the Griffith Observatory, which is just, I believe, north of Los Angeles, downtown Los Angeles, and you are able to kind of see the skyline and all over Los Angeles. So it's really neat. This here was the SCI-Arc DID exhibition where students were able to display their work and talk about their projects. Family, loved ones, friends, teachers, counselors were able to attend these events, and it's a great opportunity for students to present in front of others during this time. For any questions regarding our BARC program, or if you may be interested in the Design Immersion Days program, you're more than welcome to contact us with the information below. I am the admissions counselor for the BARC program. So if any of you will be applying to that, I'll be working with you personally. But definitely, if you are interested in receiving more information about our program or our school, you just have general questions, you're more than welcome to follow us, contact us. And if you want to learn more information about SCI-Arc and see what our students are up to during the school year and what kind of work they're producing, the best way to see that is through our social media, which we're typically just SCI-Arc all over social media. So Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, you can see us at the SCI-Arc channel as well. So I thank you for allowing me to present, and I hope that you all enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your presentation, Marcus. Now let's begin our Q&A session. Hi, Marcus. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, perfect. No problem. Same as before, if you have a question, please raise your hand or text your question in the chat, and I will read it out loud. I do have a question for you, Marcus. So regarding the Design Immersion Days program, that is a great program because we have a lot of younger students here at AOMA, and they would be interested in to attend those summer programs in order to prepare their portfolio. So would they get university credits through this program?
So we don't offer university credits for this program. If a student does happen to attend SCI-Arc while completing this program, it doesn't give them credit for any of the courses that we offer.
Okay, understood. We have another question in the chat. What do you think IB students and regular school students?
That's a great question. So we do see a number of students who are completing the IB program at any high schools, whether it be international or other parts of the United States. We don't see them any different. We do understand that the gradings and whatnot, the tests are definitely different. But our admissions committee is able to kind of navigate through that when they are looking through the application reviews. So if you are solely an IB student versus someone who's not in the IB program, it's not necessarily a difference maker, but we are aware of that for students who are in the IB program.
All right, perfect, thank you. It seems like we don't have any more questions left. Thanks again, Marcus, for the amazing presentation.
Awesome, enjoy the rest of your evening.